Hello, Jerry here, and welcome back to our study on the Old Testament kings and prophets. Now, last week we focused on King Jeroboam and his turning of the northern kingdom of Israel to idols, the golden calves. It was an unthinkably outrageous decision in the face of a lot of grace and clarity by the Lord God. But then, isn't that how it works with us as well when we take after an idol of some sort? Consider the definitive passage in the Bible against idolatry, the first commandment in the Jewish law. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. First, notice how the Lord introduced himself. The deliverer who rescued them from bondage in Egypt, a land brimming with gods. To them the Lord commanded not to have any gods before him. The Hebrew concept of before me does not have a numerical or priority meaning here, like it is okay to have gods after him, second or third, just not before. In Hebrew this means you shall not have any gods in my presence. That's the nuance here. If I was standing with you, I would be in your presence. We are all in his presence. His presence encompasses all creation. And in that realm there should not be any other gods. The Orthodox Jewish Bible, which is one of the main Jewish translations of the Hebrew Old Testament into English, brings this out from Exodus. Thou shalt have no other gods in my presence. The Message translation says, no other gods, only me. Pause and reflect how right this is. Remember, there are no other gods as real beings or entities in the creation that God made. The only gods that exist are of our own making, in our own minds, often represented by something physical or psychological. Notice verses 4 and 5 of Exodus 20. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. The Lord did not say, do not make something in the image of a god, because there are no gods. Rather, the Lord knew that people would look around creation and ascribe godhood to visible things, and then bow down to them. Think of how unwise and sinful it is to bring such gods into the world, or to follow ones already made. How true the psalmist was when he wrote Psalm 115. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak, eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear, noses, but do not smell. They have hands, but do not feel, feet, but do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throat. The idols are this way because, again, the gods represented by the idols do not exist on their own. We animate and give them life in our minds and hearts. Notice the next verses. Those who make them, that is, the idols, become like them. So do all who trust in them. Well, that's very scary. Those who make and follow idols become like them. Somehow idolatry is bad for our own human nature. They say watch your friends and those you hang around because they will influence you and you can become like them. When we worship idols in some way, we become like the idols just described. The wonders of our humanity are somehow muted or distorted when we follow idols. When we worship God and follow Him, we become more like Him. And so when we worship idols, we become more immersed and more like whatever that idol is about. Okay, back to Jeroboam. Another story is found in 2 Chronicles 13, after the death of King Rehoboam in Judah, when Abijah rules in Judah. Jeroboam meets Abijah on a huge battlefield, and Abijah, king of Judah, ascends a high place over Jeroboam and his army and gives a speech. Now, I also need to tell you that Jeroboam has twice the number of soldiers. Remember, Jeroboam has 10 tribes to draw from, Judah only 2, and that includes the very small tribe of Benjamin. Anyway, in this speech, King Abijah insults Jeroboam for being weak and indecisive, just taking his peers' bad advice. True. But then this turns theological, kind of into a sermon. And let's pick up in 2 Chronicles 13:8. And now you plan to resist the kingdom of the Lord, which is in the hands of David's descendants. You are indeed a vast army, and have with you the golden calves that Jeroboam made to be your gods. But didn't you drive out the priests of the Lord, the sons of Aaron, and make Levites, and make priests of your own, as the peoples of other lands do? Whoever comes to consecrate himself with a young bull and 7 rams may become a priest of what are not gods. First, Jeroboam brought those golden calves with them into the battle. But I love how this is worded. You are indeed a vast army with your gods with you, Abijah says. But wait, didn't you drive out the priests of the Lord God and replace them with your own? And this shows us that the worship of the Lord God in Israel was suppressed. The priests of the Lord were driven out with this new state religion. And notice how a person comes to be a priest. This person brings with him the animals used to sanctify himself as a priest. And then notice the last phrase, that they may become a priest of what are not gods. So Abijah has insulted Jeroboam, and now he insults the golden calves. They aren't gods. Abijah, having belittled Jeroboam and his gods, now focuses on the Lord. As for us, the Lord is our God, and we have not forsaken him. The priests who serve the Lord are sons of Aaron, and the Levites assist them. Every morning and evening they present burnt offerings and fragrant incense to the Lord. They set out bread on the ceremonially clean table and light the lamps on the golden lampstand every evening. We are observing the requirements of the Lord our God, but you have forsaken him. God is with us. He is our leader. His priests with their trumpets will sound the battle cry against you. People of Israel, do not fight against the Lord, the God of your ancestors, for you will not succeed. Abijah describes the true faith. He is talking to people who once observed this faith, or perhaps still do in some measure, for at least some of them. Notice the contrasts in this wonderful speech, and remember both Israel and Judah are listening carefully here. First, Jeroboam set up a religious system based on bad advice from his peers. Abijah reminds them of this. We are observing the requirements of the Lord our God. That is, we didn't invent our faith. God invented our faith. He is the author, and we are obeying him. Second, Jeroboam brought the golden calf gods with them into the battle. But verse 12 says, God is with us. He is our leader. In other words, we didn't bring him on a cart. He came with us as our leader. Then third, Jeroboam was maintaining that the golden calf gods brought them out of Egypt. But Abijah proclaimed in verse 12 that the Lord was the God of your ancestors. And don't fight against him, because you won't win. Remember the Exodus and those who fought against the Lord? So there is this amazing showdown between not only Israel and Judah, but also between the golden calves and the Lord, and the true faith of the Lord with his priests and his law. Now Jeroboam had sent troops around to the rear, so that while he was in front of Judah, The ambush was behind them. Judah turned and saw that they were being attacked at both front and rear. Here was Jeroboam again, totally trusting in his wits and instincts. He successfully pulled a great ruse upon Judah, putting troops on both the front and the rear. So while Abijah was making this great speech, enemy troops were sneaking up behind them. Perhaps this is one reason Jeroboam allowed Abijah time to speak to them all. His troops were moving into place. Perhaps this is one reason Jeroboam allowed Abijah this time to speak to them all. His troops were moving into place at the rear of Abijah's army. To have double the troops against you and troops at your front and rear, well, that's a disaster. Who could succeed against that? I'm sure Jeroboam was so eager to spring this trap. Then Judah realized their dilemma. Then they, that is Judah, cried out to the Lord. The priests blew their trumpets, and the men of Judah raised the battle cry. At the sound of their battle cry, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. The Israelites fled before Judah, and God delivered them into their hands. The Israelites were subdued on that occasion, and the people of Judah were victorious, because they relied on the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Now, isn't that an interesting passage? Judah cried out to the Lord in faith, and the priests blew their trumpets, and Judah sounded their battle cry. That is, they weren't wilting, looking for some way to surrender or retreat, but they were confident in the Lord that their king just described. The trumpets blowing and the battle cry was a signal that, hey, we are going to fight despite these tremendous odds. The Lord is with us. Notice, at the sound of their battle cry, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel. Now, how exactly the Lord routed Israel, the text does not say. Somehow, the Lord more than made up the difference and saved his people. Ever experienced that? You can't explain exactly how, but the Lord brings you through. Probably a lot of times. And this confirmed the message Abijah gave to Israel, that the Lord God is God, not the golden calves. If Judah would have lost, the whole message of the Lord being this real God would not have been taken seriously. But this also was a great witness to Israel, whom God still loves. Abijah pursued Jeroboam and took from him the towns of Bethel, Jeshanah, and Ephron, with their surrounding villages. Jeroboam did not regain power during the time of Abijah, and the Lord struck him down, and he died. So Jeroboam's precious kingdom that he clung to in his own way just became something less. He lost a lot of power and territory in his kingdom because of this loss, including Bethel, where one of the golden calf religious sites was located. That building probably did not last long. That's the one that archaeologists have not found yet. How did not following the Lord work out for Jeroboam? Not that well. But we can see how the Lord is still giving witness to Israel, mostly through the prophets, but in this case, through the king of Judah, Abijah. Something for the retreating Israelites to take to heart. Well, next time we'll continue our study of King Jeroboam of the northern kingdom of Israel, and begin our coverage of all their kings, and those prophets that God sent among them to give his heart and message. Okay, thanks very much.